Well, good morning. It's a beautiful day today. It is, what day is it? It must be Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, September the 27th, 2023, and it is 10:57 a.m. And it has turned out to be a nice day, and it's actually even getting warmer in here. Gradually, it's warming up. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about today may offend some people, but generally, whatever I talk about will offend some people. But what I'm going to talk about today is something I've struggled with all my life. I'm not the brightest person in the world, but I do possess a certain ability for reason, thought, and logic. And what I've dealt with all my life as a Canadian, and as a man too, is the requirement to believe things that don't make any sense. I find living in Canada, we're required just to blindly accept a lot of things, a lot of arbitrary things that don't make a lot of sense. And as a man, I'm also required to believe a lot of arbitrary things that don't make any sense, especially in regard to women. And I'll start out with women. I'm going to pick on you guys first because I'm an abusive person, I guess. I don't know. I've been told I'm abusive where women are concerned, so I'll start with women. I've had many women who have been in abusive relationships tell me that the man that they were with who abused them, and in many cases they've been in multiple abusive relationships, and they'll tell me that these men all tricked them, that they came across really good and nice at first, but they tricked them. And many of these same women, though, also tell me that as women, they have this supernatural ability to size a person up when they meet them and to know that they just have an intuition or whatever, and they'll know what a person is about when they meet them, and they'll know what kind of a person you are right off. When they meet you, they'll know. And oftentimes, it's the same woman will tell me both things. Well, okay, that's contradictory. I can't get my head around that. I mean, as a woman, if you're claiming, and I'm not saying all women claim this, but I know a lot who do. If you're claiming that you know what kind of a man or what kind of a person is when you meet them because you have a supernatural gift of intuition, and you know this, and you know, how are these guys tricking you? Like, you can't say that you don't choose to be with abusive men, while at the same time saying that you have the ability to tell what kind of a person is right off because you have a supernatural gift, and claim that this is a gift that women have because women have some sort of magical powers or whatever when it comes to these things. Well, no, I mean, you can't say that because it's contradictory. I mean, look, in my own case, in my hometown of Perth, Ontario, Canada, I'm really hated. The majority of the people there do not like me. They'd line up to pee on my grave. They really would. And they spread a lot of rumors about me. They claimed I was a pedophile, which there's no evidence of that at all. Um, you know, I and believe me, the local police hated me too. So if I was a pedophile, they'd have caught me because they would like nothing better than to lock me up for something like that. And I mean, somebody who is in jail as a pedophile is in danger. You know, the guys like that get killed in jail. So, I mean, the police would be happy to put me away for something like that because the other prisoners would do their work for them in getting rid of me. So, I mean, if there was anything to that at all, I'd have been caught by now. I guarantee you I would have been. Anyway, they also said that I was a homosexual, and they said that I stalk women. Now, here's the thing. Both of those things are lies. I'll just say that up front, and the pedophile thing is also a lie. But here's the thing. How can people believe that a homosexual stalks women? Like, for what purpose would a homosexual be stalking a woman? Like, if you believe I'm a homosexual, well, I could be. I mean, you wouldn't know necessarily whether I was or I wasn't. And if you believe I stalk women, well, that could be true too. Some men do that. Maybe I'm one of those men. But how can you believe simultaneously that I'm a homosexual and that I stalk women? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's contradictory. No homosexual worth his salt is going to stalk a woman. And any guy who's stalking women, by virtue of the fact that he's stalking a woman, he's proving that he's not a homosexual. He's proven that he's a heterosexual. A creepy heterosexual, but a heterosexual just the same. Because men who stalk women do so because they become obsessed with the idea of having an intimate relationship with that woman. A homosexual has no interest in having an intimate relationship with that woman. Or with any woman, you know. A homosexual might stalk other men. That would make sense if they said that I was a homosexual and stalking men. That would actually make sense. It'd be untrue, but it would at least not be a lie that contradicts itself. Yet I find that people will just believe stuff without questioning it. They don't apply critical thought at all. And as a Canadian, I see this a lot in my society. Like, Canadians for the most part, although it's changing now because so many scandals have happened and so many things have come out, especially with everybody carrying a camera in their pocket now, in their phone. It was always believed that the police were always the good guy, and anybody the police say is a bad guy by virtue of the fact that the police say so. And the police are always to be believed. Well, in my case, I saw the police being bad guys many times, so I could never go along with that. And of course, that was taken by people as proof that I must be a bad guy, because who but a bad guy doesn't like the police? And people would say, oh, you just don't like the police because you're a bad guy, you know? And it's like, well, no, I've seen the police do a lot of bad things. And so I'm not saying every police officer does horrible things, but there are enough who do, that I couldn't really reconcile that. I couldn't say, well, the police are the good guys because they're the police, and that's all there is to it, And even the police who aren't really bad guys, because of the way it is with the police, they will uphold the ones who are bad. They'll protect the ones who are bad. They'll uphold them. They'll give perjured testimony in court to protect them from accountability and so on. And so even those guys are complicit in the bad actions of the bad ones. So about the best you can say about a police officer is that he at least isn't setting bad in motion, that he at least isn't directly responsible for bad things happening, or intentionally responsible for them. That's about the best you can say, really, logically. Yet I'm told I'm supposed to always believe that the police are in the right. And it's just a rule. It's like an arbitrary rule that you must believe this. And in Canada, there's this thing about having respect for your betters. I think probably because of our British origins, we're still very much steeped in our British traditions and so on. And I think that's probably why, because that's a common thing in Britain. That's the general attitude there, and has traditionally been. And so I think it's probably a carryover from that, but it's very arbitrary. And so anyway, I've been told all my life that I have to believe that people who have money and power are my betters, and therefore I'm not allowed to go against them or to speak against them or whatever. Even when their actions directly affect me in a negative way, I'm not allowed to protest because they're better than I am, and therefore they have a right to do whatever they're going to do where I'm concerned. Again, it's a very arbitrary thing, And I just could never bring myself to accept that. Now, things are gradually changing because a lot of these people are showing themselves up. They're really showing themselves up for what they are. And the average person now is seeing things that they previously didn't see. Things that I was seeing 30 and 40 years ago, they're just beginning to see now. And so it is changing gradually. And again, this isn't to knock everybody who has money or everybody who has power, but it's just to say that there's been an arbitrary belief in this country that anybody who has money or power is a good person. And you can't say anything against them no matter what they do. So yeah, like I say, I've never really fit in Canada for that reason. And again, I've never understood even why people would believe rumors, and even rumors that contradict other rumors. I mean, look, if I'm sitting across from somebody at a table and they point at somebody else across the room, we'll call him George, and they point at George and they say, hey, that George over there, he's a homosexual. I just look at that and say, okay, well, maybe he is, I don't know. I can't have an opinion about that. I don't know about George and what George may or may not be. But then if they said, oh yeah, he's a homosexual and he stalks women, he's a creepy guy who stalks women, I'd look at them and I'd say, wait a minute, I thought you just said he's a homosexual. Well, yeah, he is. Okay. But then you said he stalks women. Well, yeah, he does. My next question would be, for what purpose? Does George get obsessed with the idea of having a romantic relationship with a woman? Why is he doing that? And if he does, well, then he's not a homosexual. He's just a creep. That's all, I mean, he's a creep is what he is, but he's not a homosexual. So like I say, the rumors that were spread about me in my hometown by people who didn't like me, a lot of the time they were contradictory. Yet people just accepted that it was all true because it was said, and therefore if it's said, it must be true. And it just shows that there's a lack of logic and reasoning and critical thought on the part of most people. In my case, one of the reasons I'm not liked is because I would have that conversation. I wouldn't just nod my head and say, oh, really? Oh, well, George is a piece of garbage then, isn't he? And then start hating George based on their word. I would challenge them. I'd say, wait a minute. You just said that George is this way, but then you said he's this other way, which would contradict him being the first way you said he was. Like, you can't have it both ways. Either George is this or he's that. He can't be two things at the same time, which run in direct opposition to each other. So, it'd be like calling somebody a trustworthy thief or something. It doesn't make any sense, it's a contradiction. Be like calling somebody an honest liar. That doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And so I would challenge it. I'd say, okay, explain to me how this and this can be true at the same time. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe you. And because I'm like that, that was to a large degree why I came to be hated like I was in my hometown, because I would point this out. And Canadians in general don't like people like me. They see us as troublemakers. They really see us as criminals because we're going against the status quo. But the thing is, there's just too much contradiction in the narrative in this country. And it's important that we see it and that it be pointed out, even if it is offensive and disturbing to people. And I mean, a person may be in love with an idea. I'm sure there are people in my hometown that are in love with believing all those things about me because they don't like me, and they want to believe bad things about me. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect. There are bad things about me. Just not those specific things. Those things aren't true. And so when they say that, when they hear them, they want to believe it, so they believe it. But then they don't bother to say, wait a minute, one thing contradicts the other thing. In my case, if I'm told contradictory things about somebody I regard as my enemy, somebody I really dislike, if it's a contradictory thing, I'll still challenge it. I'll still question it. I'll still say, wait a minute, how can these two things be true at the same time? Because the one cancels the other out. Anyway, I'd like to think that there are more people like me that would think that way, and I do believe there are others. I don't think I'm the only one. But, again, I think we're still relatively rare, though. Or it may be even just out of fear. Maybe more people do think like me than we know, or than I know. But because they're afraid, they just remain silent and pretend to believe things that don't make a lot of sense. I really don't know, but anyway, all I can tell you is I ended up leaving my hometown because of rumors. And rumors do a lot of damage. You know, people will say, well, whatever people think doesn't matter. But it actually does. Because if you look at it, when you want to do anything, whatever you want to do is largely based on what other people think. Go to the bank for a loan and offend the loans manager and see if you get that loan. Give the loans manager the impression that you're a jerk. You know, you're not going to get the loan. I guarantee it. Ask a woman on a date and offend her right off. Chances are you're not going on that date. You know, meet her parents for the first time and offend them. Chances are you're not going to have a good relationship with them and a good interaction with them, and that's going to affect your relationship with her. Go for a job interview and be dealing with a personnel director who has a preconceived notion about you. You're not getting the job. That's just how it is. So it does, what other people think, even though it isn't really right, it can affect you in a variety of ways. And this is why people will spread rumors. If you have an enemy, they'll spread a rumor about you sometimes because they want to screw you up. Basically, that's what it is. And people don't bother to take that into account before they believe it. And like I say, Canada's a bad place anyway for just this requirement that we accept arbitrary statements, and even statements that are contradictory to other statements that we're also expected to accept. It's weird here. It's a really weird place that way. Anyway, that's it. I figure I've done a good job offending people, so I'm good. Anyway, I've accomplished what I set out to do. I've angered people. Here we go. Let the rumors and the innuendos fly. Here we go. Anyway, there's Rocky. He's a very peaceful creature for the most part, unless you're a mouse or a rival cat like Visitor Cat. Then he can be quite aggressive. Otherwise, he's pretty peaceful, and I guess he's the yin to my yang or whatever. I don't know. All right. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. We'll talk to you later.